The hypocrisy of morality is a very interesting thing amongst humans. I was recently watching a video on YouTube called "I Have a Gun and I'm Not Afraid to Use It." Basically, the video shows a man who is holding his child hostage inside of the car and a whole bunch of police officers basically in a standoff with him. Now, the cop in the video says he was getting nervous because the child might possibly die because it was 109 degrees allegedly in the car. Now, the interesting thing about this is I know that that cop did not actually care for the life of the child, or maybe he did, but he doesn't actually know why he did. I know with certainty that many of those officers that were there were not there because they truly wanted to save the child's life. They were there because they're indoctrinated, socially engineered public servants, even though they're not really public servants anymore. They follow orders mindlessly. They say it's to uphold justice and things of that nature, but in reality, in most cases, that certainly isn't the truth. I know with certainty that not all of these officers care about the life of a child. I know not all of them are pro-life. Now you might say that's a big stretch comparing this video with that political stance. Now being pro-life honestly isn't even a political stance. What it is much more than that, because if this child was inside a woman's womb and it has not yet been born, how does that make it different than a child existing externally, already in the real world? How is that different? They're both in the real world, they're just in different stages of development. One has already been birthed, the other has not. Does the external existence outside of the mother really mean that within your mind that child's life constitutes more worth just because the air can touch it and it can somewhat eat for itself? Now you might say that it's different because women oftentimes get abortions when the child is still in its extremely early developmental stages, or it's still just a clump of cells or something to that effect. It's very humorous to me. Well, it's not humorous, it's kind of sad that they don't see the folly in their thinking. Many of these people say they're free thinkers, when in reality they're just regurgitating parroted arguments. They're not free thinkers. They may say their argument in a slightly different manner, but it's nothing real. It's nothing unique either. Many people who believe in pro-choice say they're allegedly scientific thinkers. Now, anyone with any discernment whatsoever knows this is not actually the case. They'll see, they'll read their pseudo-scientific articles on Daily Mail or a website like that, and they'll see something like possible life on this on a planet, right? And they'll think, wow, that's an extraordinary thing, possible life. And it might just be, let's say there's a few microorganisms living on a different planet. In the scientific community, people would go crazy. They'd go nuts. They really, really, truly would. And they would consider it life. Even if it's not human, they would still consider it life. Plants are life. Even a blade of grass is life. Now, what I'm not saying is that all life is equal. I don't believe that at all for a second. I don't even believe all humans are equal. I believe people that think that all humans are equal are being disingenuous with themselves. How can someone who is, now, objective morality is a very subjective thing. It depends on your whole worldview. Absolute truth, some people believe in it, some people don't. Except one interesting thing, that people that don't believe in absolute truth and don't have an absolute truth to look to know what is truly correct and incorrect and how to live, they'll often say absolute truth doesn't exist or something to that effect. But what they don't realize for some reason is that when they make that statement, they're making a statement of absolute truth. If you're saying absolute truth does not exist, that's an absolute statement. You may say, I don't believe absolute truth exists. That's different. That's much different. Okay. Now, like I was saying previously, if just a microorganism, just a little particle of existence was found on a different planet, everyone would consider it to be life. But a child in a mother's womb, for some reason, it's just a lump of cells. Now, you might say it's not a human, which is somewhat true, but also not, because it hasn't gone through the necessary metamorphosis in the womb. It hasn't developed. So, of course, it's not a full human. It's not a fully developed human, but neither is a baby. But for some reason, there's a cognitive dissonance with people. When the child is still developing in the mother's womb, to many people, it's not actually a human being. But once it exists outside of the mother, it is human and has value. It somehow inherits value just by existing outside of the mother. It's not like it can live without the mother. It is still completely dependent upon the mother. But just because it exists outside of it, it gets more value. It's just how people view certain things is very strange to me. I don't understand how this cop can say that the sole purpose why he tried so hard to save the child was because the child's life has value, yet at the same time be pro-choice. Now, you might say it's the woman's body, it's her choice. She had a choice to sleep with men. I'm not saying sleeping with men is a negative thing at all. Obviously, it's a perfectly natural thing in most contexts. But listen, what I'm saying is, it's not actually your body. It's a living being existing within you. It's not your body. It's a body growing inside of you. Now, it is so easy to not get pregnant. Now, you might say, if you hate abortion, why don't you support taxpayers or women or people in general getting free birth control? First off, it is so easy to not get pregnant. And the best birth control of all is called willpower. You don't have the willpower to just not commit yourself to someone you don't truly want a child with. Basically, people that decide to get abortions for the most part. Now, generalizations are not a bad thing. That's a myth. Having a general discussion, it is necessary to use generalizations. I'm not saying all the time or everyone. I'm using most. It's not a negative thing. That's not a bad thing to speak like this. Most women that get abortions, it's because they don't want to take responsibility for their actions. That's the real reason. They're being disingenuous with themselves, saying and making up other fictitious excuses.